All right, let's do graphing linear equations from slope-intercept form. Okay, so essential question, how do I graph linear equations in slope-intercept form? Pretty easy. So first off, to review, slope-intercept is y equals mx plus b. Okay, so remember, m is your slope, b is your y-intercept. Okay, so if we want to write that down, so we have slope y-intercept. Okay. Alright, so a linear equation can always be graphed from slope-intercept form. In my opinion, it's probably one of the easiest ways to do it. And you can do that by plotting the y-intercept first, because that's a point they give you, and then you use the slope to plot more points. And again, you only need 2, but you can plot 3 or 4 if you want, and then you draw a straight line through all the points. Okay? So, pretty straightforward, not a whole lot to this. So let's go ahead and just jump into the examples. So the first one, I want to graph the linear equations below. So for some people, I know it helps to label things. So if you can always go through these equations. Y equals, here's m, and here's b. Okay. Now, I always teach that you begin with b. So b is your y-intercept, so I'm going to do 0, 4. So that's the first point that I need to graph. So always begin with b. So because b is the y-intercept, I go on the y-axis. I go to 4 and I put a point. Now I'm going to use the slope to find the next point. Okay, so if slope is -2, and notice it's a whole number, it's not a fraction. Every whole number is over 1. So this is the same thing as -2/1. And the reason that I do that is because now you can see rise and run, because the rise is on top, the run is on bottom. So our rise, because it's negative, our rise is going to go down 2, and our run is going to go right 1. And we always do that starting from our y-intercept. So from this point, I'm going to count down 2, so down 1, 2, and then right 1. Then you put a point. And if you want to keep going, you can go down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. So I have all those points. Now you just connect the dots, make a straight line. Of course, the more dots you have, the easier it is to make the straight line, but you only really need 2. Okay. So now, either from the graph or from the equation, since we did label these, it's very easy to do, we can label the y-intercept and the slope. So the y-intercept we already said was 0, 4. And then our slope, we said, is -2. So just make sure when you do slope, though, that you don't include x, because x is an entirely different variable. So the slope is actually just the coefficient. It's the number in front of x. It's not x. Okay, but that is our line. We have y-intercept and our slope, and we're done. So let's go to number 2. So we can label this one as well. So we have m is right here, b is right here. So our b, of course, is where we begin our graph. So our b is going to be 0, 2. So I can go ahead and write that right here if you want. So 0, 2. So because that's the y-intercept, I go to the y-axis, go to 2, put a point. And I'm going to use the slope. So our m is 2/3. And because it's positive, so here, I'm going to go down here, m is 2 over 3. And because it's a positive number, my rise is going to be up 2, right 3. And I start from this point. So from here, I go up 1, 2, and then right 1, 2, 3. And I put a point. So I have 2 points. If you wanted to, you can always go backwards and get a third. So from here, if I go up and right, backwards would be down and left. I put a point there. Okay, so you can do 3 points every time if you'd like. That way you have, again, it's easier to make a straight line, because my lines are not entirely straight, because I don't have a ruler, but that's okay. But the important thing is you start at the y-intercept and you use the slope to find at least one more point. It can be helpful to find 3 points total. It's up to you. But again, we have our line and we're done with that question. Let's go on to number 3. Okay, number 3 looks a little different. First off, my y-intercept is still going to be this one right here, this last number. So 0, -3. So our y-intercept is right there. And again, y-intercept is on the y-axis. I go down to -3 and I put a point. Now our slope. Notice we don't have a number in front of x, but remember, if there is no number in front of x, there actually is a 1. Okay, so then our slope down here, we would put 1. But again, we have a whole number, so I would do m equals 1, which is the same thing as whole number over 1. Okay, so every whole number is over 1. So that means my rise, because it's positive, I'm going to go up 1, and my run is right 1. So from this point, I go up 1, right 1, and put a point. So I can go up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. So I can keep going. And I can go backwards. Make a straight line. So you connect all the dots the best you can. And that's our graph. Now if you're graphing these like on a test or online or something digital, typically you only need 2 points and then your line shows up because it's a straight line. But if you're doing it on paper, again, you can get as many points as you need to. So at least 2, you can do more. Some people like to do all the points they can every time. So it's whatever you'd like to do. All right, last question on here is number 4. So we have m is -1/2 and m is slope. Okay, so we have m is -1/2. So our rise, because it's negative this time, it's going to be down 1, right 2. That's our slope, sorry. Our y-intercept, I almost said the wrong thing. 0, -1. Okay, so y-intercept is what we start with, so we always begin with b. So I go down on the y-axis to -1. And then my slope, we go down 1, right 2 from this point. So down 1, right 2, put a point. So I can go down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2, and I can just connect those dots right there. That's enough to make a line. And that's how you graph a linear equation from slope-intercept form.